Welcome back, Wise Chat. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. This is producer Henry saying thank you for joining Wisecrack Live. Mike will be with us in just a moment. And, shout out to Old Grease for all the memberships. We have a new Lord of the Chat today. Lick the stem, get cozy. Mike will be with us in just a moment. And as you all settle in, I'd just like to remind everybody that Show Me the Meaning has returned. You can check out Wisecrack 2 to catch yesterday's stream. Future streams will be happening every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific.
So here's what I was thinking today when I was driving here to this undisclosed room in the outskirts of the Los Angeles basin. Thinking about how we presume a sense of infinity, or at least of, naturalness to human existence, but there's going to be a generation of humans potentially who are around as the sun burns out, as there's a sort of cosmic heat death and this whole thing collapses, and I think we get to exist in this moment where we participate in this unconscious fantasy of, eternity or infinity or whatever you want to call it. But what a weird thing that eventually, it's all going to burn. And eventually, there might not be memory of this because there might not be memory. You know what I'm saying?
Sir, you were describing Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun.
Okay.
Highly recommend it to anybody who is unfamiliar, but continue.
Yeah, but because the whole thing is we think of past generations and it's sort of like, they'll remember us, or we remember our ancestors, and that's why their lives and their struggles were meaningful. But there can be a point in the future where there is no subjective or conscious memory of the existence of human civilization, and at that point, did it exist? Did it matter? What was the point? Now we could think of that in a really dark and cynical way and say that if there's no infinite futurity of the human project, why does anything matter? Maybe in another sense, it's like, hey, this whole thing is a big cosmic accident. So let's ride it till the wheels fall off and do the most we can with it. But, that's the sort of thing I was thinking today as I was driving in traffic, taking slightly over an hour to get 14 miles. And, that's that. I also, on the way here, was listening to the new episode of Why Theory on Frederick Jameson, which is really good. Hey, it's Wisecrack Live. We're starting a little early, so I just wanted to hit you with something really poppy and fun right off the bat. Okay, let me see something. Zizek, Slavoj Zizek, fan of the show in the chat, says, how is Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson the topic? Didn't more important things happen last night? What happened last night, Henry? What could
From what I
Slavoj Zizek be
understand,
referring to?
Iran made moves on Israel, I believe. I think we also debuted Show Me the Meaning as far as important things occurring goes.
I wonder if that's what they're referring to. Show Me the
what
Meaning.
else? What else happened?
I mean, if you think, Gary Reed, maybe, but it wasn't a little fest. It was like a big fest. Infinity, I'm glad you're enjoying the traffic. Like, if you think that we're going to talk about the vice presidential debate, we're just not. I'm just letting you know that. I know that we maybe set this standard where, someone watched Interstellar for the first time last night, then maybe what I just said is an appropriate, intro for you. An e-bike, Steve, wouldn't be an option for me because of how bad the roads and sidewalks are here. It would be like I would be daring God to kill me every day. And while I like doing this, it's not worth it. And to our friend Aritoro Rautdas, if you actually if you just say bring back Thug Notes 10 more times in a row, it'll magically come back. That's how it works. Just constant reminder that spamming the chat is how we get things done. God is in the chat, and it's like sort of the Beetlejuice principle. You say it enough, it's gonna happen. But I don't know. I didn't watch the full vice presidential debate. I tried to watch a little bit of it. I didn't like it. It made me a bit depressed. I'm not trying to be, dramatic here, but I will say that I felt like an oncoming disassociative episode as I started watching it. I would say that disassociation came from, I guess, this feeling of like, this is really it. Like, this is really the level of political discourse. Even the moderators, I was just like, is this real? Like, you don't seem like real people. They seemed like two AI women. Everything about it, I just found to be a whole bummer. And, here's the thing, guys. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to move the needle. Vice presidential debates don't really do much. So I don't know.
Amb in the chat says JD Vance looked great, and that's kind of the only takeaway I really had was how dangerously normal he looked in a controlled television broadcast environment.
Yeah. Long and Port, don't worry, we won't say anything good till you're here. So yeah, I mean, I think that he maybe looked a little more normal than usual, and then oddly, Tim Walz looked bad.
I'm starting to believe that conspiracy theory you pitched last stream.
Oh, I'm very, 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 very true. I'm very true. I'm very confident that they are trying to pare back Walz. And there was a thing that came out yesterday that there was like some advisor who's running their campaign told him to stop calling stuff weird. Like, it's very clear that they were like, don't have fun with it. Don't kind of rib JD Vance at all. I also think, and here's something he did keep jimmying the camera, Logan. I also think Gio, the story about me dressing up as Steve Irwin on Halloween, I think it would have been Halloween 2006, is absolutely real. I promise you I would never lie. But like with the Walz thing, I think he worked. Okay, I think Tim Walz is like a stand-up comedian. Here's what I mean by that. During COVID, you remember that thing? Stand-ups, tried to make YouTube videos and TikToks and stuff of like telling jokes in a room alone, and they weren't good. Right? It just doesn't work. It's a medium that necessitates the comedian reacting to the energy and people in the room. Put Tim Walz in front of human beings, and I think he's great. Put him in a weird, dark studio where the only person he's allowed to talk to is JD Vance. There's a couple lifeless reporters in front of him, probably some production assistants behind a bunch of lights. I just don't think that's the place where he's going to thrive. Hey guys, we've kind of been a slow intro here. Like the stream if you want. I see it has 69 likes right now, so maybe stop liking it. Also, Geez Louise says Republicans have been comparing Wallace to Chris Farley. Yeah, nothing's going to make us hate him more than comparing him to one of the most important, funny, and likable comedians of the past 30 years. God forbid he was like the lovable, glorious goofball Chris Farley. But hey, they have Rob Schneider on their side, so who knows? So Chris Maverick actually has a new show. This is how we launch it. It's a new Wisecrack show called Chris Crack, where Chris Crack Maverick is going to tell you why Thug Notes is never coming back.
The Mavcast.
Yeah, the Mavcast, for both fiscal and ideological reasons. Let's see. Okay, someone said John Amos passed. I saw that name on Twitter and I thought John Stamos passed and I almost cried. Thank God. So here's what we're going to do today, guys. I want to talk a little bit about Russell Brand's rebranding. Oh, that would have been a good title or something to put up. The rebranding of Russell Brand. He's like a Christian now, and I'm not sure. He's like a Catholic kind of thing. He's best friends with Jordan Peterson. He's been on this rightward turn for a while, but I'm really fascinated by it. I'm very fascinated by this. I'll tell you why, then we'll back up and we'll get back to that. When I first moved to England in the year of our Queen, 2007, felt pretty lost culturally, and some friends were like, "Oi, mate, if you want to understand our culture, listen to the Russell Brand podcast." I didn't really talk like that, but I was told to listen to the Russell Brand podcast or whatever on BBC Radio. And I didn't have a lot of friends yet, so I just started obsessively listening to Russell Brand's old like BBC podcast when he was more like a reverent comedian guy. And it was really funny. To be clear, it was funny to me when I was 22, 23, 24 years old, but it also was like a really good introduction to so many elements of contemporary English culture, English colloquialisms, the way people think and talk about a variety of issues. It was almost like a weird sort of cultural education. And there was a sense for quite some time that Russell Brand was someone who was at least like vaguely, if not progressive, at least not fash adjacent. Married Katy Perry at one point, which nothing says progressive soldier of communism like marrying Katy Perry. But someone said Matt Walsh mentioned you. Did he? In what context?
Yeah. Please tell us more.
Saying he wants to make out. Oh my God, marry me if you like me so much, Matt Walsh. Just he wants, yeah. Hopefully he means Matt Walsh from the world of comedy, from Veep, from other things. But yeah, so Russell Brand, someone said I take Noel Fielding over Russell Brand. Well, extraneous. The next journey of my like UK enculturation was after I watched or I started listening to Russell Brand. Someone was like, "You got to watch The Mighty Boosh." So I would say like the next phase of my sort of development is learning about British culture and getting into weird comedy was The Mighty Boosh with Noel Fielding. If you've never watched The Mighty Boosh, guys, I would say you got to do it. Yes, there's the weird picture of Russell Brand baptizing someone. So, one thing that I've already seen brought up in the chat is that a new trend is sort of like, there's a couple pathways. There's the like spiritual new age grifter too right-wing Christian pipeline. There's the I've been, you know, accused of rape and sexual assault by many people to now I'm a Christian pipeline and things like that. You know, there's sort of some trends here, and we're seeing this. So the video I'm working on this week that we're going to film next week is on, you know, the theological turn in the right, and on you know, people like Curtis Yarvin and the Dark Enlightenment that are influencing people like J.D. Vance. And, you know, the way people use Christianity in a politicized way, I just find so dark. And let me, of course, say this. I've said this a bunch of times, but like, I'm actually quite an apologist for structural elements. I'll talk about old Greg. Russell Brand has definitely been accused of sexual assault, perp skirp. Very, 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 very many times so. Many times over. Again, I'll say accused. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I'm just a guy. But, you know, like I was saying before, I think there's many good elements of Christianity and religion in general. I'd say one of Walls' best moments in the debate last night, we're not talking about the debate, but one of Walls' best moments is when he quoted like Matthew 25 something at Vance, basically being like, hey, mister, my whole identity is tied to Catholicism, Christianity, and nationalism. Here's a verse from the Bible where Jesus says the most important thing we need to do is take care of the poor and needy. Yeah, so go back to calling, you know, Haitians like animals and saying that we need to kick immigrants out of the country. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of stuff there. But yeah, someone said woo to QAnon pipeline. Drift King makes a valid point. I'm going to just quote Drift King directly. I don't understand with all the money they got, why not just pay for the kitty? I've always thought this. If you're like really super rich and you just are addicted to sex, then I don't know, ethically procure sex workers, pay them fairly for their time, treat them well, and just do it that way. I guess the issue, and this is a digression, we should not be going on less than 10 minutes into the show, but, you know, I guess it's about power, right?
Yeah, the power dynamics are completely different in that sense.
Yeah. That's why when someone like Russell Brand's like, oh, I'm a sex addict. I'm just a sex addict, you know? Oh, go like this. It's like, oh.
I'm
It's
just
like,
a
no,
helpless
man.
little guy.
Yeah. I'll just put it in there and move it around. No, man. It's like you're an abusive person probably who needs to take advantage of people to feel power because of your own insecurity. And yeah, someone said that in chat. And I'll just say like
if you were an addict, you'd be going broke paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you were an addict, I don't know. I almost just went on a digression into the psychology of the sex addict. And I'm not going to. What's up, Alex Butler? And again, shouts to Old Grease, who's the current Lord of the Chat. If you want to be Lord of the Chat, gift subs to people. It's a sick thing to do. Yeah, The Boys season 4 does have a great character showcasing the Christian QAnon pipeline. So there you go. And if you want more Russell Brand impressions, today's special on the show is any super chat. If you want, you can write something in the super chat, and I have to read it as Russell Brand. I'm saying that and you have to, you know, indicate that in the super chat. But if you want me to say anything as Russell Brand on today's stream and today's stream only, there you go. But yeah, so we're gonna watch Russell Brand's performance at the conference, the convention, the weird thing that happened in DC over the what's it called, like Rescue the Republic, I think.
Yeah.
One of these weirdly anomalous things where it's just a bunch of stupid grifters all together with a bunch of weirdos cheering them on who want to rescue the Republic. From what? For what? From whom? I don't know. I know RFK was there. I know some bad musical artists were there. I know JP was there. I know RB was there. So there we go. Let's see. And then real quick before we really get cooking, if you have not checked it out yet, Head over after this to our new channel, Wisecrack 2. Show Me the Meaning, our movie podcast. Came back. We're streaming on Tuesday evenings. Of course, it's also available on YouTube for you to watch, listen to whenever you want. We're going to have it up on podcast platforms pretty soon. But check that out. If you live in a time zone, and I think this is actually beneficial for some of you who live in Australia or Asia or parts of Europe, it might be at a time that's more convenient for you. Hey, hi, hello, Jackson. Jackson needs to go on Show Me the Meaning. Jackson, have you ever been on Show Me the Meaning? You should go on the new one because you would be good at that, especially when we talk. I guess when they talk about some TV related stuff. I think that's what I would like to see. Okay, guys, let's start with some comments from last week, and then we'll get into Russell Brand and Joel and Payson. I didn't watch the whole Russell Brand thing. I did watch one clip of the thing I watched today where Russell Brand does a Jordan Peterson impression, and I'm not gonna lie, it's funny. And I want you to know. Also, wait, someone said earlier too in the chat that Matt Walsh mentioned us. If you're still here, I'm wondering if that's true and what the context was, I mean, hopefully it was Matt Walsh saying he wants to teach me about satire and comedy. So I would love to hear it. But yeah, okay. Matt Walsh should probably do a really good impression because, as a professional comedic actor, that's like his thing. He's a comic performer. He's sort of that's what he's gifted at it. So, Matt Walsh, if you're watching, I can't wait till we can see you do some accent work. Okay, let's get these comments up. What's the first one you have? Moo Cow Mally. This is from our video on World of Warcraft that came out Friday that no one watched. It's a song I'm working on called No One Watched. Which is fine. It's a fun video. It's just like kind of off brand for our channel. And like I told some of you before, I'm gonna do the thing where I cover my mouth so I can say that I didn't actually say this and someone AI'd it. We were basically forced to make that video due to some intercompany partnership stuff. And the gist of it was basically, if you do this, we're going to make sure you can get the money to really launch Wisecrack 2. So sometimes, you got to put a D in your M to make things happen. Okay, so Moo Cow Mally said, I definitely credit World of Warcraft for my decision to go back to college and study environmental science. That legit rips. Playing a tree hugger, world-saving druid for a decade makes it difficult to ignore the real problems we're facing on Earth with climate change. Allegedly. I think that's interesting. And one of the things we talked about in the video, which I do think was like a cool idea to explore, is the way in which games, especially games, MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, allow you to create characters that push the boundaries of or expand your own physical identity and allow us to explore, new identity types. I'm glad that in some cases, like for Moo Cow Mally, it's a way to get into environmental science. For some people, it might be, a gateway into fascism. But, I think it's interesting how both the gaming and social media spaces in the last 20 years have created these pathways for us to expand and explore identity. I only wish there was more space in our own lives to push and explore identity. This is from William Reilly, 3455. I grew up playing piles of games whose plots dealt with groups of plucky resistance fighters struggling against fascist regimes or greedy corporations. Final Fantasy, Skies of Arcadia, Tales of, the list goes on. Those themes weren't lost on me. Now I'm a communist. William, why do you have to politicize everything? I miss when William really didn't talk about politics. I miss when he just did objective philosophy. No, that's really fun. The amount of games and sci-fi and films that fundamentally deal with like oppressed groups trying to take down fascists and then people saying they're not political. It's just so funny. This is from Heyoka86. This is from our Chapel Roan stream on Monday. Thanks for indulging us with that one, guys. They said, she's got my respect. Only qualm is calling liberals the left. Yeah. It was like, I think we can be, nitpicky or pedantic there, but it's part of the discourse for everyone. Woo, the 8284 said, they say it's lesser evil voting, but get mad when you acknowledge that the lesser is still evil. There's a maybe real, maybe apocryphal Jerry Garcia quote where Jerry Garcia said, when you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil. You know, Stinkinator, nice, said, I think a better question is why do we pay so much attention to what celebrities think? They are people who do live in the same world as us. Yeah, I think one of the worst things that's happened in contemporary society, this might be hyperbolic, so welcome to Michael's hyperbolic corner, is that we expect people who are good at a thing or who are notable at one thing to somehow be experts at another thing that's not that thing. For example, if someone's really good at basketball, why would I expect them to be good at cooking French crepes? If someone's a really good French chef, why would I expect them to be really good at theoretical physics? And if someone's a genius at theoretical physics, why would I expect them to be a genius on labor policy? But there's a version of this in our society. There's an even more insidious version of this, which is if someone is at all notable, has an audience, has a lot of followers, we should listen to what they have to say about a number of things. It's very stupid. Now, I think Chappell Roan's actually an interesting person in so much as she's made very clear in her art that she is both influenced by and wants to sort of shine a light on and be in solidarity with like the queer community, with the trans community, which is a good thing and is a political move in a way to sort of have a political tinge to her art. But, I was thinking about this, maybe we'll talk about this later, but I was watching this bad interview with this YouTuber, some of you probably know, JJ McCullough, who I'm only aware of because I think, did he tweet that Ta-Nehisi Coates should talk to Destiny, maybe? And it made me, yeah, I think that's what it was. I think it was like he retweeted a Ta-Nehisi, yes, he did, a Ta-Nehisi Coates thing, and was like, it would be really interesting to see him sit down with Destiny. And I was like, wait, would? It would? No, wait, no, it wouldn't. Just wouldn't. And this kind of even plays into the other thing I'm saying. But, and when I was watching this McCullough video, Jay Fig says, Matt Walsh, expert comedian, but terrible political commentator. God, the parts that this guy is going to start getting is insane. Thank you for all hailing Walsh. Did anyone ever say if he actually talked about us? I'm just curious.
From what I saw, Coffee is necessary.
Matt Walsh
now
in discussion
posting...
of Grifter mentioned you for his videos.
Yeah.
For your review. Okay. Matt Walsh discussion of Grifters. All right.
It might be on like a private Daily Wire stream.
Yeah. Matt Walsh. But watching like a bit of that JJ McCullough interview where he talks about the left and politics, and just like, what is this person? He gets to say it and write columns for the Washington Post because he makes videos about like why Canadians do be like that. It's okay. We back? We'll never do a private stream. All our streams are public. Logan Mansion Games, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Although you showed up and you immediately retracted your message because it had a bunch of bad words. I'm kidding. It was very normal. Let's see. Long and Porks. I'm sure JJ McCullough is like good at other stuff. I just don't think his political takes are just wild. And that's the thing, right? Like, there are so many people in the contemporary digital media space who were genuinely good at a thing. People who've made funny video essays, people who are like good streamers and interesting as gamers, and people in that culture, people who are from like the sports world, all this sort of stuff. Just do that thing. But the reason they all pivot to talking about like political stuff, even though they have no fucking idea what they're talking about, is clickety click, clicks, click, clicks. It's all about that cash. Speaking of, let's talk about Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson. I'll get this queued up and pause it. So just a reminder, this is Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. We do this show every Wednesday. We also stream on Mondays at 10 a.m. This stream, doesn't have a sponsor, but has a partner, right? And our partner, as you guys know, is Yes Please Coffee. Here's what it looks like. Guys, today we're starting the Yes Please giveaway contest, where every 2 weeks, one of you is going to get free Yes Please coffee just shipped to your house, which is good because this is a high-end culinary product. Yes Please is run by a small crew here in LA. They're an independent company. They ain't about no bullshit. They just make really good coffee for you to drink. And I just think you deserve it, If you drink shit coffee and you can afford to have slightly nicer coffee, do it. You deserve it. All their stuff is wonderfully, specifically, ethically sourced, roasted by professionals, sent directly to you. They don't sell coffee to anyone else, so the at-home barista, feels cool to say that, is the main client. You get 20% off with code Wisecrack. We got a link in our description. You can go to the website and use the code. But stay tuned, because we're going to announce the official contest where you can make a thing, can do a thing. I'll talk about it more in a second. And they're going to help us pick some winners, and you will get Yes Please coffee just sent to your house.
Melanie Cosmic Fox is asking, what's the difference between a sponsor and a partner?
Great question. Let's see. Never mind. Here's the difference in as I conceive of it. They don't pay us money. So if someone sponsors us, it's like they're paying us money to be like, say the thing. In this case, we partner with them in so much as I reached out to them. I have a relationship directly with the dudes that run the company. They like what we do. We like what they do. And they don't pay us anything. We do get a small share of the revenue for a bag of coffee if you order it via our code. I mean, we're talking like a couple bucks, like not crazy at all. So that's why I use the word partner to describe that relationship. But happy to answer any more questions about that. If you want advice, if you have comments. Okay. All right, cool. Alex Butler, I'm so glad you're becoming a coffee freak. I love it so much. Let's see. I love you, but ADHD is hungry today, so I must feed it music. Do it. But yeah, you can always hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Okay. Questions, advice, recommendations, please do it. So let's watch this and break our brains together. Okay, this is from the Rescue the Republic event. Russell Brand never buttons his shirt up. Also, Russell Brand's definitely in that thing now where he's like at an age where he needs to. This is my take. There's certain people that have an aesthetic, like a way of dressing, a way of wearing necklaces, all this sort of stuff, that hits a point where you're just too old. And that's okay. But there's this fine line where you pivot away from that aesthetic or you look kind of pathetically old, like you're trying too hard. I think he's right on the cusp of that. So let's see what he has to say at the Rescue the Republic event.
Hello there. My fellow Americans. It's so lovely to be part of a double act that would have seemed somewhat unlikely just a short decade ago.
Like, look at Jordan Peterson in his like double little jacket being there with this guy. It's so weird. I mean, again, speaking of disassociative episodes, just like where are we at as a culture where people like this have a huge influence? I mean, and I guess like here, and in the chat, I'm curious about this. I want to try to approach with some level of empathy or understanding why people are so into this shit.
With my colleague and fellow clinical psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson, everyone. Doctor, before we begin this presentation at Rescue the Republic, brilliantly organised by the great Brett Weinstein. A round of applause for Brett.
He has his little leather pants with his little zipper poking out.
I'd like to allude to the fact that it can't have been easy for him to get licensing and permit for this event, when surely at some point he'd have had to have explained what its purpose was, its proximity and its location, other than holding the event on January the 6th, I don't know what he could have done to have made it more administratively challenging.
January 6th is funny. Comedian, actor, activist. No one's hiring this dude to be in anything anymore.
For himself. So once again, Brett Weinstein, thanks for holding this event.
Yeah, someone notes that it's two non-Americans grifting on the American right wing.
Dr. Peterson and I have been on a rather unusual journey. I don't mean literally, we arrived separately, but by God we'll be leaving together, won't we, Doctor? To arrive at this
Yeah, this crowd loves gay jokes.
stage. I'm an Englishman, I'm not from your great country, I admire it and you very deeply. I'm not traditionally what you might regard as a Republican or a Trump supporter. I have arrived on this stage via Hollywood, via liberalism, via all sorts of images of freedom in the form of decadence and Epicureanism, the mindless pursuit of pleasure.
My God. I arrived here via my pursuit of okay. I mean too, just this whole notion that Hollywood and the liberal media is a den of Epicureanism and the seeking of pleasure. Like, honestly, it'd be more interesting if it was. Also, I love the idea to this person's like, I arrived here via Hollywood. It's like, dog, you were in like 3 movies. You got lucky that at one point Judd Apatow was like, we'll put you in some stuff. And now no one's going to watch the stuff you're in anymore because it was, like Get Him to the Greek. You get Russell Brand and Diddy in one movie together. That's what we call a yikes in the biz. But let's go on and see more of his thrilling critique of Hollywood. This is just like, again, the most boring thing that a certain type of grifter does is like blames Hollywood or the entertainment industry for corrupting their soul, and only by breaking with that and then trying to create media via other channels whose goal is still the capturing of attention for the sake of profit. Are you really free? It's like, come on, guys.
As a god. Stand before you today, thankfully with a professional psychologist, because I could go crazy at any moment, baby. Because I admire your spirit of freedom and your liberty. And it seems to me that once the MAGA movement is joined by Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard.
Look at this crowd. I just want to do a quick look through the crowd, see what they look like, see what their vibe is. Seems about what, right? Looks like what?
Okay, so that RFK sign, if you're taking out the FDA, who's going to be holding accountable Moderna and Pfizer, who you also want done away with, but also this just destroy everything, I guess?
Like, what is the teleological endgame of this sort of freedom and liberty is the real question. Like, what do these people want? Like, do they want a lack of regulation? Because you know what that gets us? You know how like plants are like blowing up in Georgia and people are having to boil water, and the Boar's Head factory has breakouts so we can't eat deli meat anymore. And it seems like there's a lack of consistency to anything in our society, and everything's getting dangerous. It's almost like regulation to an extent is a good thing. It's almost like some form of professional oversight is good. So are you free if you're like free to, this sort of like individualist conception of freedom. Also, I'm going to be that guy for a second, wholly undialectical way of thinking about freedom. If someone could explain to me why this sort of freedom is good, I would love it. I would love it. But yeah, I just don't like freedom's interesting. Freedom's important, but like, this is what happens when you can only think of freedom from an individual's perspective and can't think of freedom as a collective enterprise. When you can only think in terms of like my individual, physical, personal, economic freedom, and not the way in which you as a human being exist in a society related to other human beings, which means that your subjectivity is related and your freedom's related. But it's just free to drink poisoned water. Exactly. Like, what are we doing? Like, what I wonder for any of these people, like looking at this crowd, who is unfree? They clearly are at a point in life where they can travel to DC to stand in a field and watch a bunch of just wackos just spit hot bars of garbage all day.
Where the anti-establishment...
Okay, again, I just have to pause and look at this crowd. That's the true anti-establishment. A bunch of people that all look like they could be cops, car salesmen, mid-level insurance salespeople, principals at a rural middle school. Like, what is anti-establishment about, for lack of a better term, what's seemingly a bunch of middle-class and rich white people getting together to complain?
Sentiment. And it is not with the current incumbents of the White House who, for all their rhetoric...
Is that Michael Rappaport in the bottom corner? No, I don't think so.
...advocate for further and deeper...
Like, if your crowd looks like this, you want to take a slow pan shot to really show the sick gang you have? Jesus Christ. And I'm not here to try to make fun of people for their physical appearances. You know, I look like I could be one of these guys, I guess, but boy.
And more who seem keen to lubricate the pathway to authoritarianism and totalitarianism with talk of protecting the vulnerable. During the pandemic period, we saw how they protect the vulnerable by imprisoning the majority, by medicating everybody.
We're still on about that?
By obfuscating facts, by concealing...
Oh my God, some people in the front paid for VIP tickets to sit in these little chairs up front, and they clearly didn't sell all of them. Can you imagine? You got some cowboys up there. Do you know those guys from Texas, Henry?
I do not.
I just figured any guy looks like a cowboy's from Texas, and Texas is such a small community. I feel like
I mean,
truth and
a lot of the dudes in cowboy hats aren't from Texas, but they move here and adopt the affect to just, compensate.
Yeah. Someone said I've just called them deplorable. I mean, I also said that I'm like them. I said that I could be one of them, so I don't know. I guess so. I feel like the whole deplorable thing was a dumb thing to say. I mean, I don't think they're deplorable. I think they just look like normal people that probably have like pretty solid lives and don't have their freedoms being crushed.
Freedom. I, like many of the organizers of this event, believe that this is a critical moment for us. Not just the ordinary rank and file supporters of the Trump and MAGA movement, although to you, of course, I am open-hearted and full of deep and Christian love.
Deep and Christian love. Christian love. Oi, like, what are we doing? Like, why do we have to all be Christian? And yeah, Jacob Room Jensen, if you type 8-bit philosophy 10 more times, where the show's going to magically come back. So I'm glad that you understand how that system works as well. I appreciate that. Like the stream if you're full of Christian love. Christian love.
But also to people that would never consider voting for Donald Trump. It is to them that I reach out in earnest and say, if you care about democracy, if you care about freedom,
I do, Russell.
if you care about ending war,
I do, Russell.
if you care about your children's health,
yes.
Ultimately, if you care about freedom,
I love it.
This is the time for you to do something decisive and different.
Yeah.
I pray for a free and fair election in November.
Should we pray together now, guys? Dear Jesus, if you exist, I want to pray for a free and fair election, because in your cosmic and eternal goodness, I feel like that's what you're probably really concerned about up there in the heavens. I mean, again, just all this, of course, playing directly into conspiratorial theories about the last election.
I pray.
Oh, they have their hands up to do Jesus stuff. So for those of you who don't know, in certain like kind of evangelical, Pentecostal, versions of Christianity, it's common, like you do like this, you kind of put your hands up, whether someone says something where you're like, praise Jesus, or you're like doing worship music, they do that. I'm not saying that to make fun at all. I'm just letting you know from sort of an ethnographic perspective where that comes from.
Hey, that great heroes like Edward Snowden will be revered and heard.
What do we think about Snowden, Henry? Do you have Snowden takes?
I don't really have anything cogent, like as far as like a solid, judgment or anything like that goes. Sometimes I follow him on Twitter and do see what he's talking about. Yeah.
I'm truly only saying that because I don't know. Matthew Jacobs says, as a Christian for decades, Christian love absolutely is about protecting the vulnerable. Paul literally wrote, your freedom is not for you, but to serve others. Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, that would be, and I'm thinking about this in the script I'm working on right now about the sort of theological influence on a version of the American right. It's like a decollectivized type of freedom, and I know that, Matthew Jacobs in the chat knows way more about this than I do, so I don't want to be too sloppy here, but I know for a fact Paul talks about our freedom being for others. I know that when, Russell Brand says Christian love, and love as it's described in the Bible is about loving one's neighbor or loving God. It's always like an outward focused thing. And I don't think it's like an internal thing, if that makes sense. Like you love your neighbor as yourself, meaning we focus that outward. And of course, we know in the book of Acts, in the New Testament, there's this emphasis on like a communal living, sharing things in common, a sort of prioritization of the other above ourself. And if we look at a lot of traditional Christian social ethics and political theology, you see a lot of that. So it's Sandhill Farmer says there's a concept in the Bible called the quarter of the vulnerable. Basically, the argument is that a society should be judged by how we treat the poor, the orphan, the widow, the immigrant. Yeah. I think that's seems very true. I know there's in certain traditions a preferential option for the poor. There's the stuff about Sodom and Gomorrah, where the real sin of Sodom wasn't sodomy stuff. It was the, not taking care of widows and orphans and the vulnerable. So I just wonder, why, this all leads you to think at least one of a couple things is happening, right? Either people like Brandon Peterson and the people in the crowd are earnestly attempting to live out a sort of Christian value, and they're just horrifically misunderstanding the message being led astray by others. Another option, of course, would be something like, they're seeking power and influence for themselves, and they're willing to try to synthesize that with Christianity because they think that'll make them popular or influential or whatever. I don't know. So Julia Cove says, aren't church and state supposed to be separated? I'm learning in some of the research I've been doing for this video we're working on about a movement called integralism. That's kind of a Catholic conservative political thing in America, where for some people, this means they want the state fully integrated into the church, and the church should be the sort of moral voice of society. That's a real thing that some people would like. This one guy looks really exhausted. For me, he's in the bottom. I guess he's in in the left quadrant of the screen, kind of older looking guy who just looks exhausted, like he didn't mean to come here and he just showed up. I like his vibe.
That international martyrs like Jude.
Oh, someone had a shirt that said Rage Against the War Machine. I love when Rage Against the Machine is sort of co-opted by these people. It's the best thing.
Julian Assange will be accredited.
Peterson's face is a little bit what is he saying?
The defense industry, the big food industry, the big agricultural industry that prohibits, curtails, and oppresses ordinary farmers will face at last the serious opposition.
I will say, every now and then, and guys, if I'm wrong on this, please tell me. I feel like the key with these folks is every now and then they say something that's not wrong. So for example, it is true that big agriculture is a messed up part of the U.S. economy, and it is screwing up the lives of farmers, which is why people like Neil Young and Willie Nelson and John Mellencamp do the Farm Aid show every year to try to bring light to the struggles of working farmers. But I don't think they actually really care about that.
That it requires, and if it takes me, an Englishman, and the great Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is whatever his great credits, he's still Canadian. He's
so far.
They're working on that, aren't they?
What's funny about this?
We're here in support of your freedom, our freedom, and collective freedom. So with that, I will now ask you, Dr. Jordan Peterson, why did you, because this is a segue, I'm moving to an interview now, I'm aware I've spoken for a long while. Any of you that know Jordan Peterson, well, you've never seen Jordan Peterson not talk for that long, have you?
Well, it's not entirely obvious to me what the solution to the situation is,
It's kind of funny, I'm being honest.
Pretty plain.
I mean, it's not hilarious.
I know you've got a microphone, and I've seen you defend yourself against English broadcasters extremely well. Dr. Peterson, tell us why it's important for non-Americans like myself and you to participate in this event, and given that this is a rally, that means it's an offering of optimism and hope for the people in attendance. How do you believe that we should start?
Is the end game of this? I'm not going to look up Rescue the Republic and go deep on this, but it seems like just the end game of all of this is like Trump stuff, right? Am I reading this correctly, friends? Think so. I think that's all it is. Yeah, Willie Nelson definitely cares Chase Hatchett. I guess what I'm saying is that there's like people like a Willie Nelson, a Neil Young, other celebrities that seem like they go out of their way to show solidarity with, rural communities in America and the farming world especially. And I just don't know if these guys are it.
Off our conversation.
Well, whatever's happening here
Now we're fucking cooking.
Is emblematic of something that's happening all over the Western world, right? I mean, it's exemplified by the political process in the U.S., especially as it leads up to the election. But all the things we've been discussing today are both broader and deeper issues than the mere political. And so they are of international concern. And of course, what happens in your country has been of central international concern for a long time, but that's transformed, as I said, into something that's deeper and even more
really not that many people when you think about it.
Significant. No, I made allusion this morning to the fact that we're trying to get our story straight. We're trying to understand what is the foundation on which we all stand that allows us to maintain the freedoms that ennoble us and give us an unlimited horizon of opportunity.
I like that some of the people up front are standing like they're at a show and they like really want to be like up against it, because you need to stand up and be ready to
what
party.
Are they
watch
in the
this.
United States? What are they in the Western world in general? How are they related to, let's say, the Judeo-Christian enterprise as a whole? And what is it that should bring us together as avatars of the freedom-loving democracies across the world?
Did this man say we're avatars? Again, like there's
Yeah, the last 40 seconds of just, I guess it's a want for the freedom to, like, just the American jingoist idea of, like, hey, the frontier, the freedom, like, nobody's going to tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lyric from a rap song from years ago that says something like, you talk a lot of shit, but you ain't saying nothing. And that's what it's like to watch these people talk. Like, the amount of words relative to the actual content of anything being said is just nothing. Just nothing.
Well, so what's happening here is of immense international significance, as you know from watching how people around the world are, what would you say, looking to the United States in particularly to defend free speech, because if it's ever defeated here, it's gone everywhere. And that would be a terrifying thing.
I mean, when they say free speech, I don't mean to be cynical here, but I feel like free speech for them is free speech to just like bully trans people. Like, what is an example of a curtailment of free speech that these people are upset about? Because, for example, I've never seen them talk about stuff like, is it Cornell University or Brown University is currently basically getting a doctoral student deported for speaking up about Palestine. There's a college professor, I think it's like Mulberg College, a Jewish president of a college is being forced out because of expressing solidarity with Palestinians and Gazans. We know that there's new rules in a bunch of universities in America in a similar way that like directly curtail the ability of speech and expression of students who either are Palestinian or show solidarity with Palestinians. I haven't heard any of these people say anything about that. Again, it's not like I'm clued into, their content. I have better stuff to do, like stare at a wall and long for death. But if these people really, it's almost like if these people really cared about free speech, they would care about that. The main curtailments of political speech we see in America right now, which tend to be along those lines. The same way that people that are pro-life, if they really cared, axiomatically about life, then they would care about a number of issues that go far beyond reproductive rights and the control of fetuses and things like that. So there's just this horrific inconsistency there. And everyone in this crowd, like, well, go ahead.
Any talk about Ken Clipperstein getting banned from X for just sharing that Vance dossier?
Yeah, again, like, great example. Sean O'Leary says, how can it be free speech if people treat me like an asshole if I use the N-word in casual conversation? Yeah, for sure. Sandal Farmer says, Jordan Peterson looks like he eats M&Ms with a fork. I'm going to say chat of the day thus far. Wow. Okay, let me see something. Yeah, describe in detail how you're being censored on a public forum. Like, who in this space is being censored? And I think, too, if you're saying, like Jordan Peterson would say, maybe I'm censored because I can't teach in Canada anymore because I wouldn't simply use the pronoun someone preferred. That's like free speech to be a dick. I don't think that's valuable. I think if we were talking about like people being oppressed for their inability to express their political stances publicly, sure. You guys are having a rally in Washington, D.C. with thousands of, like, clearly you're fine.
And make no mistake, it's under true assault. In my country, there's a bill that's in second reading, which has pushed it quite a way.
If Julia's still here, let us know, or any of our Canadian friends, the truth of what he's getting at.
Along the legislative route, Bill C-63, which literally allows people to be reported to a provincial magistrate under the possibility of 1 year's imprisonment in their own house with an ankle bracelet, with all their communication intercepted, in consequence of anyone's complaint that they're afraid that a hate speech event might occur in the next year. Yes.
So I just quickly Googled this, and this is how this is described on the Canadian government website. Bill C-63, an act to enact the Online Harms Act to amend the Criminal Code, the Canadian Human Rights Act, and an act respecting the mandatory reporting of internet child pornography by persons who provide an internet service to and make consequential related amendments to other acts. Seems like a big part of this is saying that people shouldn't be able to do child pornography. Okay. I'm just like skimming the summary of this bill. And the stuff it's talking about is like sexual harassment, bullying children, intimate content communicated without consent, content that incites violent extremism or terrorism. It's basically being like child pornography and terrorism. And then there's a whole section that's like, hey, it doesn't include freedom of religion, freedom of expression, right to liberty, right to secure against unreasonable search, offense rights, cruel and unreasonable treatment. Okay, again, I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but I'm just saying if like you're really mad about a bill, and maybe there's more here, right? Maybe there's more here. But if the main thing seems to be it's a bill that says you can get in trouble if you do terrorism and child pornography, I don't know. That doesn't sound so bad. I see. Oh, Julie, I see you had a redacted. Okay, so you're just saying it's not true. Okay. Here, I'll put the link to the bill in the chat in case anyone thinks I'm just doing liberal propaganda.
Old Grease. Super chat making an excellent point.
Yeah. I hope people know by now that Judeo-Christian is a dog whistle because Islam is still Abrahamic. And yeah, Jorb definitely wants freedom of Islamophobia. Definitely. So yeah, but again, like we live in a world where, like, not to be dark, guys, but so, like, World War III starting up, that's a thing. Hundreds of people have died and are still struggling to kind of survive in Western North Carolina. people still can't afford healthcare, are struggling to survive on normal wages. Like, there's just so much going on. And this guy's rallying point is that in Canada, there's a bill that says, like, you should stay home for a year if you do digital terrorism or child pornography.
He's 63, and I've read that bill 3 times.
Ooh,
because
big
every
boy.
time I read
Big
it
boy.
and then think about it, I can't believe that I could have possibly understood it properly.
Oh,
and yet
you
here
did,
we are.
though.
And there is very similar things going on in the UK. There was a terrible bill that was recently defeated in Ireland, for example, which would have put severe restrictions on free speech. And there are people in the UK who are being persecuted, and seriously persecuted, for expressing their opinions, offensive though they may be, publicly in a manner that is absolutely necessary if you're going to support free speech. And we know that, well, the free speech that offends no one requires no defense, and that's partly because it has no content. If I only ever say something that everyone agrees with and produces no emotional response whatsoever, there's no point in even speaking. Because you don't have to concentrate on what's obvious if you're going to speak. You have to concentrate on what's contentious and disruptive. And there isn't anywhere on earth, and this certainly includes my home country, where the protections for that vital right are more thoroughly enshrined and deeply entrenched than they are in the United States. And seriously, thank God for that. It's so vital. It's so important. So, and so good on you for managing to maintain it. And don't be taking it for granted, because it could disappear at any time, as Robert Kennedy pointed out earlier.
There's no internet in the official Wisecrack offices right now. Is the stream still on?
Yes, the stream's still going. Can you see the video?
Hey, friends. I can't. Is it still playing?
It was playing. I put it on pause, but if you don't have access to the watch together, welcome to the Michael Show.
Yeah, hey, what's up, everyone? I'm just on a phone now. What the fuck is this shit? Sorry for me swearing, guys.
Power
I didn't mean
outage,
to,
internet outage? What happened on your block?
We're still on up here. I'm gonna go, let's see, maybe we'll go investigate. Give me 1 second, everyone, but thanks for hanging out. There's like a Slack channel for our office.
They're trying to shut us down. We're too powerful.
Here, let's go on a field trip. Okay, friends. I feel like this is the second time this has happened recently. Thanks for hanging out. Like the stream if you're here. I'm going to go see if it's out for other people or if it's just for me. Let's see. Did your internet go out? Jesus Christ. Okay, it just happened when we were live.
Who he's talking to.
It's fun. No worries. Oh yeah, I'm just well guys, that's the internet's out for a bit. Brave and illustrious colleague, let me know it goes out once a day here. I guess I've just never been here when it happened before.
Just
so I
currently power because of crumbling infrastructure or what? What the hell?
No. I mean, here's my other thing, guys. While we're taking a break, can I just share another theory and thought I have with everyone? I'm sorry this is so unprofessional, guys, but another thing I've been thinking about is like everything's worse, right? Think back to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, at least in places I've lived, public transit was better. Restaurants were better and more affordable. Bars were better. Movies were better. The music coming out in many ways was better. The political situation, while not great, felt a little more normal. Like, where are we at now? Why, what do we do to deserve this? But that's a thought. Let's see. Is there anything fun we can do in the office? There, we have some old props here. That's a guy that exists here. Let me give you guys another tour of
Oh no, he's just gone now. Ladies and gentlemen, friends beyond the binary. Oh, wait, I see him back on Discord. Let's see if we can get Michael back.
Why do they hate us? Why are they trying to shut us down? Okay, guys, let's see. I think we can get back. Hold on. Okay. Are we
All right,
there?
you're back. As far as the studio cams working, do you have access to the internet and the watch together and all that? We can get right
Yeah, I
back
think
on
I have to
track.
reload the watch together. Guys, thank you so much for dealing with that. I really appreciate you. Let me see if it'll let me back on the old chat page.
Is Matt Walsh outside cutting the power lines? Do we have a saboteur in the building?
Do you think Matt Walsh knows? Okay, here's a real question, guys.
No, I don't think he does.
Yeah, do we think he like knows stuff? Like, do we think that Matt Walsh knows how to like fix things, or like he knows, how to run electric lines and stuff like that? Oh, I'm gonna go close. I forgot. I left the office door opened, and I don't want anyone to hear what I'm gonna say because what I'm about to say is really gonna offend some people. So I don't want any snowflakes to get offended by what's about to happen. Give me 3 seconds.
Much like Jordan Peterson, Michael wants to not be censored for his hot takes.
Oh. Okay, sorry for that, guys. We're about at the halfway point here. Please like the stream if you haven't yet, because we got throttled by the system that's trying to take us down. I think that they try to shut down free speech. They try to shut down our free speech. That's the only way I can explain this.
Patriots are back in control.
Wow. Let me do one thing really quick while we're going. Reminders, well, you can email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Let's see.
Please email us your questions, your recommendations, and if you do wish we talked more about movies and pop culture, don't forget to check out Wisecrack too.
Yeah, check it out. Live it, be it, participate in it, be a part of it. We have videos coming out soon. Okay. I'm going to look at Wisecrack Live 666. Oh, I got some stuff in there already. Thank you. Love to see emails popping up. Love to see them. Although we get weird promotional emails now. One of you bastards put us on some sort of email list. And I'll find out who it is and I'll get you. I'll get you real good. Okay. The watch together is back up for me. Let's see. Okay. It's making me FF. I think I can figure out where we were.
I pray for him and hope for the people in attendance.
Significance, as you know from watching how people around the world are, what would you say, looking to the United States in particular, particularly to defend free speech, because
okay, if you're not from America and you're in the chat right now, be honest with me. So I've lived not in America. Oh, we'll share the link to Wisecrack 2 in a second. Dick Smith, I read that book and I liked it. Oh yeah, so quick recap. If you're just tuning in, we're now at the halfway point. This is Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. Oh no, the fucking ceiling lights came on. God damn it. Probably look all washed out like a friggin' cracker right now. Okay, cool. Remember when, never mind. Okay. It's Wisecrack Live. It's October 2nd. Happy spooky season to those who celebrate. We are talking, we're watching all of this thing from this resist the rebellion, resistance, fight with the resistance,
Rescue the Republic.
Rescue the Republic event in DC where a bunch of cool guys got on stage and said stuff.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. There's a Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson collab, the one that all the kids have been wanting. And it's weird. I'm fascinated by Russell Brand's sort of dive into like Christianity. Now, Russell Brand has already been on this like right-wing turn for a while, but now his new thing is he's been baptized in the waters of Christ. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. But one of the things Jordan Peterson just said, I'm curious about, is he said the rest of the world looks to America. When I lived in not America, I will say that everyone from not America I met kind of thought we were silly. And I'll tell you what they liked about America. And again, my only experience, I lived in some places in Western Europe. TV shows. Yeah, American TV shows. They watch a lot of TV of ours over there. Foodstuffs. Now, these aren't really even American things. Well, one is, when I last lived in the UK, smash burgers were becoming a big thing, as were like fried chicken sandwiches. Those are very American foods, so they like some of our, high cholesterol cuisine. What else from America? was appreciated over there? Like music? Yeah, like cultural stuff and cuisine. No one was like, oh, we look to you guys for freedom. If anything, they were like, your country seems silly. It's silly that all these things happen. It's silly that you guys don't have these sort of things. Because a lot of Europeans would say, America, and again, Europeans, let me know if I'm wrong. I've talked to Europeans that would say, like, you guys are way less free than us. Well, why is that? Well, because I'm free to, like, use public transportation. I'm free to, like, quit my job if I need to because I have health care and I know that I can, like, go to the doctor if I don't have a job for a bit. I'm free to get a good education or go to university with no fees or limited fees or whatever it might be. I'm free to apply for an artist grant from my local council that'll let me, like, get by for a year or two just doing weird art shit. It seems like the main freedom they're talking about in America is, like, the freedom to say dumb shit and the freedom to probably not be a billionaire, And I guess the question is, in some parts of the world, they might cancel out your freedom to probably not be a billionaire one day to then ensure a lot of other freedoms for everyone. But it does feel, and I guess maybe I'm being reductive here, that a lot of this truly boils down to, like, I want to be a billionaire that can say the N-word. And it's like, what if we just said you can't say the N-word? And you're definitely not going to be a billionaire one day, but a bunch of other stuff's going to be pretty good. Go ahead.
But
sorry guys. Yeah, Henry,
being
you're not. I'm
being
so
a
sorry.
billionaire and just saying the N-word all day is why I do this.
Guys, I think I just ruined Henry's life right there. Oh yeah, guns too. That's fair. We imprison more people per capita. Yeah, Trejo's tacos any good? I mean, it's like fine. Let's see. I'm just checking up on the chat. Hamburger Frankfurter. Yeah, America cuisine isn't very American. When Eddie visits, Eddie, you have a German wife? That's fun. Yeah, Julia says American culture impacts Canada. Yeah, I think, like, our popular culture is what's influential. I don't think it's necessarily our political. Yeah, Ali says rap music. People do like rap music. Let's see. Someone said Christ is king. Sure, but if he is, means we should love everyone and serve the poor, right? That's what we think. Okay, let's watch some more of this because we got to get smart. Thanks for being here. Like the stream, and a fun announcement in a couple seconds for you guys.
If it's ever defeated here, it's gone everywhere, and that would be a terrifying thing.
That's just not true, guys.
And make no mistake, it's under true assault. In my country, there's a bill that's in second reading, which has pushed it quite a ways along the legislative route, Bill C-63, which literally allows people, and there isn't anywhere on earth, and this certainly includes my home country, where the protections for that vital right are more thoroughly enshrined and deeply entrenched than they are in the United States. And seriously, thank God for that. It's so vital. It's so important. So, so good on you for managing to maintain it, and don't be taking it for granted, because it could disappear at any time, as Robert Kennedy pointed out earlier. So,
Robert Kennedy, who beheaded a whale, put a dead bear in Central Park, and had an emotional affair with a journalist while married. Good guy.
It is significant that the Constitution is now being spoken of as an artifact that can be changed.
Why does Russell Brand care about the American Constitution? This is so silly. Also, the point of the Constitution was to be like, we don't want to be one of you anymore.
And ordered. The New York Times recently said that it might be problematic. And when sacred documents, yes.
A sacred document. Guys, here's the problem. When we take these, like, weird theological concepts, like the sacred, because what does it mean for something to be sacred? It means that it's something that transcends, human fallibility or frailty. So a sacred item, it's like the tablets that come down from the mountain, something that is sacred is sort of divine. It is of God. It is of the transcendent. It is beyond what we can do. That's what it means when we say that something is sacred. Constitution was a document written by some dudes. America is not the first like geopolitical space that made a list of rules. This has happened many places. There's a lot of countries, a lot of nations, a lot of groups of people. So to call it sacred is to imbue something created by dudes. We don't even got to say that they're bad dudes. Many of them were, but we don't got to say that they're bad dudes. They're just dudes. And now we are acting as if somehow we're presupposing that a spiritual divine force was leading the hands of these men as they created this magical document. It's just a thing some people wrote, guys. Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's definitely a negative thing. There's no question about it. Because I suppose,
Yes, they were all in their
when the
20s,
principle
or
of free
most
speech
of them were.
itself is under threat, then all other values, as you've explained many times to me, fall away in its wake. One thing that struck me, Dr. Peterson, when you were speaking just then, is the banalization of our culture. That means making it ordinary.
I like how kind of condescending that was. The banalization of our culture, that means making it ordinary. Like, I'm British, so I know the word banal, and no Americans would.
And sterile, and lacking in glory, and
Glory?
and lacking in valor. The
Valor? Who's ever looked at, like join the army, Russell Brand? You know what I mean? That's my new thing. If he wants to be, like, all about valor and the Constitution in America, gain your citizenship by joining the military.
desacralization, that means the taking away of God from all things. It seems
He, like, Wikipedia'd some weird Catholic terms and now just applies them like he's a friggin' scholar.
that there is a globalist and totalitarian
Oh, globalists, cool. Anti-Semitic dog whistle.
scheme to replace God fundamentally, to remove God from the conversation, in order that the globalist state
As another anti-Semitic dog whistle.
may lay claim to the edicts that we would previously have afforded our Lord and Saviour, the one true living God.
This
Wait,
is
what
crazy.
edict? Yeah, this
This is
insane.
crazy. It's crazy, guys. And, like, again, to be clear, if you're just tuning in, we are not saying, yeah, Ali Cattell says he's living in medieval sci-fi fantasy fiction. Absolutely. We're not saying that religion is silly. We're not saying that Christianity is inherently silly. We're saying that Russell Brand, someone who's had an entire career doing all types of stuff, now talking about the sacred glory of Christ Jesus in our politics or whatever. Chad Garcia, yeah. Soy reacting to the grown man with his buttons down on his shirt and a bunch of gold chains and the guy with the fucking two-tone suit. Definitely. Wishburns could show people how to be more mindful present rather than snark for snark's sake. Miscellaneous, are you saying that I'm being snarky or that I need to be more mindful or whatever? I want to know because I care what you think. But, you know, the implication here, of course, is that there's a version of Western civilization that's grounded in, again, to use their language, Judeo-Christian principles that is being taken away from us. Now, this, in a sense, I feel like obfuscates. That means distracts from, you know, the entire tradition of the Enlightenment, right? The Enlightenment being a period where we realize, like, oh, okay, the sacred is a thing. Church, God, that's a thing. But human reason is another thing. So a lot of the nations and political ideologies formed post-Enlightenment are prioritizing people, the existence of people, the coexistence of people, using principles of reason, and often many of these fall short, to think about what it means to create, you know, democratic, just, equitable societies. They disconnect that from religion because religion is an aspect of the spiritual, and, you know, the Enlightenment's not an atheist movement. It just tries to separate those spheres a little bit. But here, it seems like what he's trying to call for is like a return. Thank you, Michelle Anius. A return to Christendom, right? You know, we talked before about like integralism, this movement that's taking place amongst a lot of, I think I'm comfortable saying like extremist Catholics in America, where rather than this Enlightenment divide between the sacred and the secular, faith and reason, they want the church and some of the, I guess, like theological, moral, and ethical principles of the church to be applied broadly to society as a whole. Let's see. Someone said, actually covered all the trolling personas that came here for further understanding, not more human bashing. Yeah, miscellaneous, totally. I'm going to say this. As a person who's, let me see, toxic and trying to be better, we primarily do understanding of issues, but every now and then I just like reach a breaking point, and I'm so sorry that you have to see that. I'm not even kidding. Like I wish I was better. You know, I like what I want to be. I want to be a person who watches something like this and has this sort of like baseline empathy and tries to understand what they're saying. But sometimes I just snap a little bit, you know? Um, I want it, but I don't want to be like that. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that helps, but I want to be better. And I never know what the line is between righteous indignation and dehumanizing. But the one thing that's also really important here, like whenever you hear about like the globalist guys, that's tied to some pretty gnarly anti-Semitic stuff. B, they're imagining some secret cabal of like rich people that control the media and the government that want to like take over our lives, evacuate Christian principles from them, and make us like zombies for them. It just makes things, in a sense, way more interesting than they are, right? Like the real thing we have globally is like different people competing for access to capital, and some people or some politicians who like are basically like, let's figure out how to keep the peasants happy enough while we accumulate capital, and others who are just like, fuck the peasants, let's just get all the capital. You know, we see an example of this. I think Rashida Tlaib had some tweets about this yesterday. You know, yesterday, stock prices for weapons companies went through the roof. And there's members of Congress that own stock in those weapons companies. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not some magic secret thing, some globalist cabal. People are trying to figure out how to maximize profit however they can. You know, it's not as sexy as these people might want it to be. But, you know, to shout out our buddy Frederick Jameson, who we talked about last couple streams in light of his passing. And I won't say it was a tragic passing. Guy was 90 years old. He had a good friggin' run. Although Jimmy Carter got him by 10 years. You know, always historicize. Use history to understand these things. And there's like this lack of historicization to these people's understanding. And we see what happens when you act like the present moment, and your sort of projected narrativization of that present moment is like all that there is. You know, it's very, very weird. And it kind of, something I've noticed in watching and reading a bunch of stuff from both the like neo-reactionary dark enlightenment Curtis Yarvin types and some of these Catholic integralist types. They talk about Lord of the Rings constantly. You know, Peter Thiel, one of his companies is named after something from Lord of the Rings. Like, they're obsessed with these sort of, you know, fantasy narrativizations, which I guess make life more interesting, but just distract from the material and economic circumstances that are actually, you know, making stuff happen the way that they happen. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's get back to watching a little bit more of this.
We did break 666.
Hey! I'm watching this stream and they celebrated 666. And I cried because they were desacralizing YouTube, where Christ used to live. Sandal Farmer, I listened to both Behind the Bastards on Curtis Yarvin. I thought they were good in terms of laying out the trajectory of his thought and the influence of his thought. What I'm going to try to do in this video we're filming next week is dig into the ideas a little bit and see what we can get at. The cathedral, baby. Now, we're going to take a quick break because I want to tell you about something that we're doing. I'd said that we're going to start giving away Yes Please coffee, and we are. And here's how we're doing it. You're going to tell us how you love your coffee, why you like coffee. And here's how you can tell us that. It could be a poem, short story, little essay. You could do a drawing. Shout out to Eddie. You can make a short animation if you're an animator. You can make a weird meme about coffee. You could write a little song that you record on your phone. You could do anything that's simple. Don't waste too much of your time. If you write something, keep it at a reasonable length that just tells us how you love your coffee. And I want you to take that weirdly and creatively. I want you to do whatever you want with that, okay? But you have a week. Tell us how you love your coffee in some sort of creative form. And again, the boundaries of that, you could make a collage out of magazines in the dentist office and take a picture on your phone and send it to us. You could, film a reaction to you drinking your first coffee of the day with some weird music in the background. You could do a number of things. You could rewrite a Dipset song with a verse about coffee. You're going to email those to us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Please put coffee contest in the subject line. Coffee contest in the subject line. Henry and I are going to pick some finalists, and then our friends over at Yes Please are going to pick the winner. When they do, we'll hit you up. We'll announce it on the stream. If the work is showable, we'll show it to our friends, and they'll send you a bag of coffee. We're going to do this every 2 weeks as well. And I don't care if the same person wins it every week or every time. We're going to just give it to the best person, right? We're not doing snowflake stuff right here. It's whoever wins. So again, that's our Yes Please coffee contest. Tell us how you like your coffee in some weird, creative, fun way. Email it to wisecracklive666@gmail.com. There's going to be a winner every 2 weeks. And it's not nothing. One of their bags of coffee without a discount is in the 20s. So I think that's a pretty solid deal. But please have fun with it is all I would say. Just have fun with it. So that's our coffee contest. It's happening. I want to see some of you win. Get involved. Whoa, Miscellaneous doesn't like non-instant coffee? That means you only like instant coffee? Okay. This is crazy. Zero likes their coffee like I like my men. Sean likes their coffee mold free. You might even say that you like your coffee to not have tiny spiders inside of it. So there you go. Okay, let's get back to this and learn about why everything's good in the world. And I promise this, I'm not going to promise 100% earnest explanation. Here's what I'm going to aim for the rest of the stream. You guys can let me know how I do. 80% sort of understanding, maybe 20% snark, satire, rage.
But of course, as a Christian,
every time he says it, as a Christian,
the principle that matters most to me is non-judgment, forgiveness, service, recognition of my own failings, of my own imperfections, of my own sin. Any of you that saw the recent photograph of me in my underpants will know that I am capable of erring even while baptizing. I did some baptisms. I've not been a Christian very long, but I'm getting right out there.
I'll say that's weird too. If you just convert to Christianity and you start baptizing people, that's what John the Baptist did in the Bible. And it's sort of like when you start baptizing, because here's who baptizes normally, like in the Catholic tradition, a priest does baptism. If you guys grew up in some other traditions, let me know. But I think it normally tends to be like priest, ministers, things like that. And I think that the idea there is there's some structural accountability, someone in a position of leadership. It just seems weird that my man's running around in his underwear baptizing people.
Doing the baptisms. The apostles were doing it on day one, is what I heard.
He's comparing himself to the apostles. Maybe that's not bad. Maybe that's good.
And there's no point in us coming out here and having just a cozy conversation. We have to take risks with one another. We have to be clear on subjects such as racism and ending bigotry and ending hatred.
Look at Peterson with his eyes closed. It's like he's either thinking hard, disagrees with what he's saying, or is trying not to poop his pants.
And allowing people the ability to express themselves individually through their identity based on that principle of Christian love and forgiveness. And I'll take a risk greater than finding yourself in the acquaintance of the Clintons or finding yourself on a flight with Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, was RFK on the Epstein list? I feel like he had to have been.
And I speak as a man who went to Vegas with Diddy and was safely in my bed by 11 p.m.
I feel like that's not the. Is that funny to joke about? I don't know. I'm going to be serious.
PM.
What do you think, Henry?
Oh, I was just thinking, I'm pretty sure RFK did just straight up say, like, oh yeah, I've known Jeffrey Epstein and all these other horrible people, and I've been friends with them.
Yeah. People in the chat are talking about Two-Face's suit. That's how he dresses. That's how he dresses, guys. That's how he really dresses. I might
Alone,
speed it up.
I point out. No freakouts, no baby oil.
Oh, don't. He's like, okay, I just want to say too, he's joking about the fact that Diddy is accused of like raping a bunch of people.
Maybe I could speak to this.
Oh,
He was just talking about Diddy and baby oil. And then Peterson's like, maybe I can speak to this.
You've got to pick up on that.
You know, on the subject of P. Diddy, a lot of people enjoyed his early work with Biggie, but after all, did he not cede too much territory to Def Jam and the great work of Rick Rubin?
So I was actually going to speak to the Christianity element and not to the leave it in Vegas element, and so I think I'll do exactly that. You know, one of the things that's become very clear to me as a consequence of the studies that I've undertaken about the stories that unite us psychologically and socially, the deep stories, and the deepest stories we have that unite us are religious stories, is that imagine this. Imagine you have a choice, because you always do have a choice. So you have a choice between leaders who presume that there's no transcendent unity. There's no foundational truth. There's nothing beyond us on the ethical plane, right? So people who are tilting in the atheist direction, they're beholden to no one above themselves.
So yeah, so this is interesting. Okay. The argument here, and this is just, it's weird because people have been arguing against this for a while. I was going to say at least since Immanuel Kant, but this was happening way before Kant. The argument here seems to be, if we do not have a transcendent God, right? If we don't have a principle that exists outside of our immanent material realm, then we can't have ethics. Well, why? Because there's no consistent principle existing outside of like temporality and the finitude of human existence by which we can gauge what is good or bad. So without God, all we have is nihilism. There's a guy that I studied with when I did my master's degree who wrote a book on this that was kind of good but also dumb. It was called like Genealogy of Nihilism, this guy Connor Cunningham. And his book was sort of an attempt to basically say, and to be clear, I don't agree with this, that every great philosophy at its core is just nihilism in a different dress. And that unless we have a transcendent, beyond eternal principle, i.e. Christianity, we can never truly be ethical. Nothing can ever truly have meaning. And that's what he's getting at here. But of course, like when we think about this from a political perspective, and this is a political rally, well, what does that mean? If we say that there has to be a transcendent, eternal principle above all else, well, you know, we already know what this looks like. In a certain political sense, we have monarchy, right? God, the eternal thing, anoints, right, the king, divine right of kings. So we have a human being that has special access to the divine. So that human being mediates between us, mere mortal plebes, and the divine. And we are not willing our own future. We are not willing the political system in which we live. We have a mediator who kind of like tells us what God thinks. A Jedi of sort. Yeah, I'm turning on the Jedis. That's where I'm at, guys. Maybe I got acolyte pilled. But this is something Peterson's been on about. And you all know this, but like there are a number of ethical and philosophical theories that have existed for hundreds of years, which argue for a number of different ways that we can all create and participate in ethical systems devoid of a transcendent externality, you know, from the existentialist to German idealism, to Kant, to someone like David Hume. There's many examples of how people have thought through this. And you know, one of my critiques of someone like DJBP is that he knows this. He must. but he acts like it doesn't exist.
Or to principle above themselves, right? Well, what I've learned from studying what I've studied is that humanity has strived for thousands of years in the most diligent possible manner to conceptualize what should constitute the divine principle of sovereignty to which...
Notice how he uses the term sovereignty there, right? It's not divine love, it's not divine justice, it's not divine community. It's this weird obsession with sovereignty, which, if you are someone, let me know in the chat if you're not, if you are someone that believes that like egalitarianism is a principle, or like some form of universal human rights is principle, a notion of absolute sovereignty or divine sovereignty seems to exist in contradiction to that.
Every man and woman is beholden and by whom they're judged, whether they know it or not. And that means that there's a sovereign spiritual process that even those who rule us are required to adhere to and kneel to. And
the funniest part about all this as well is they're talking about Donald Trump. They are acting as if Donald Trump is beholden and kneels to the divine sovereignty of Jesus Christ. That's silly. Just a silly position, because obviously he doesn't. Like, I think I would like buy this more if there was a presidential candidate or political leader. I mean, I guess even like J.D. Vance, I guess, is at least more about that life. But it just seems so forced.
Think clearly. If you think clearly about that, what you understand is that
sovereignty during Brexit was tough.
If you have a man or a woman who's leading, who's in a position of sovereign power, and there's nothing to whom they're beholden, the tendency is going to be very strong for them to regard themselves as the sole source of authority, order, and progress. And there is...
I mean, and just see how this goes politically, right? The second that you are not the source of some level of personal autonomy, it becomes much easier to tell you what to do. So at the same time, maybe this is something, maybe it's not, let me know, guys. At the same time they're saying freedom, 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 my freedom, my freedom, my freedom. Also, it's bad if you're the source of your own autonomy. It's bad if you have an autonomous human subjectivity disconnected from some external sovereign and divine principle. Because the people, some of the people in our modern world, in both the political, theological, and philosophical sphere, who want to argue for the existence of the divine sovereign principle, are the people that are going to tell people, often women, you can't do this. Well, why can't I do the thing I want to do with my stuff? Because of the sovereign divine thing. But I want to do the thing with this is my situation. It's not your situation. I want to do this with my situation. Yes, we are, but it's not the divine, you know? Like, to me, that just seems so inherently contradictory. But if I'm missing something, let me know. Does that make sense, Henry?
Yeah, just the focus on sovereign, and I don't know, even you using the word beholden is just bringing Blood Meridian to mind as far as Judge Holden and his whole suzerain of the earth spiel in that book.
Yeah. Someone quoted Rousseau, God created man in his own image, and man, being a gentleman, returned the favor. I mean, I've talked about this a lot recently. This is why I do still love the work of a German philosopher, Ludwig Feuerbach. Wrote a great work. Is it a collection or a work called The Fiery Brook, The Essence of Christianity? And, Ludwig Feuerbach, if we were going to say there was a simple way to put his big idea is that the secret of theology is anthropology, which means that when humans talk about God and we talk about the divine, it's a way that we talk about and understand ourselves. Now, Feuerbach does this not to be an angry atheist materialist. He does this to say theology and religion have a determinate intellectual value. The value of those things is the mechanism by which we can understand ourselves. But Feuerbach's saying in his era, kind of post-Hegel, maybe we're getting to a point in the development of human reason where we can just start to embrace that a little bit more, where we can realize theology has served a purpose in allowing us to articulate things about our own humanity and existence. But maybe now we can drop the illusions a little bit and just get down to it.
Anything more dangerous and totalitarian than that. And so this realization that Russell has come to, that there has to be a divine sovereign principle under which we all operate, including the political, is in no small part a fundamental protection against
Anyone know any of these people? I think we had a Bills fan on the right.
It's the totalitarian assumption that the leader himself is God. And heaven help us, and seriously so, if we ever fall.
That the leader is God.
Yeah,
Guys,
Maverick.
read. Go ahead, Henry.
I was just going to bring up Maverick in the chat saying reducing ethics to divine interpretations tends to fall apart if you rely on everyone having the same interpretation of divinity.
Yeah, 100%. And then, you know, like, I think you... Yeah. I mean, yeah, this all involves a incredibly similar notion of the divine, and a notion of the divine that is normally held through some type of force. The author I was talking about on Midtown Funk was Ludwig Feuerbach. Let me see if I can find some Feuerbach for you real quick. Let's see. Oh, the Internet Archive says Excellent. It has it. Yeah, let's see if it's still there. Great. I'm going to share a link to the Feuerbach book that I was just talking about. Say what you will about the stream, say what you will about me, but I say stuff and I give you books trying to show you that it's real stuff. But I even do think a lot of the way they're talking about this, like, and hey, like the stream if you're here, it helps us a lot. If you read the New Testament, it's not like God is some fucking political leader. He gets on his knees and washes the feet of others.
Fall into that delusion. Take that.
I mean, these guys just want power, right?
I'm very much enjoying the format that appears to be organically emerging. You might have noticed there's been very little planning between Dr. Peterson and myself. We've just had microphones thrust into our hands like lotions at a white party.
That was another joke about rape and sexual assault.
Onto the
free speech, baby.
Stage, and what it's sort of become is a polysyllabic 8-mile rap battle in which both of us advocate for freedom and for Christ and for liberty and for new forms of unity in novel ways. As allies, in fact, rather than as opponents. Some of you will be aware that auspiciously and with deep serendipity, today is the feast of St. Michael, the Archangel.
Hey! Sorry. That's my name. My name is Michael. Nice to meet you. So that's why I said that.
This occasion, surely we are protected by heavenly forces. Surely, as the good doctor just indicated, there are higher authorities. Because while I was listening to you, Doctor, I feared that there would be a darker consequence even than personal authority and personal autonomy assumed.
A darker consequence than personal authority and personal autonomy.
When there is no loving God, no loving Father, no Trinity in all perpetuity, engaged in loving unity.
I mean, and this even relates to something we talked about before, like, okay, I'm going to give the dumbest, most naive, born yesterday interpretation ever. If Russell Brand has earnestly converted to Christianity, and seemingly this happened within the last year or so, someone can correct me if it's a much larger period than that, should he now be the person baptizing people and doing public speaking events that verge on authoritarian political theology? You know, it's a thing that just keeps happening in our culture because he was famous for other stuff. Now he's just kind of, this is very word salady, friends. And I don't like it.
From when came, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. The principle of separateness, the principle of self-centeredness, the principle of the ego, the principle of solipsism upon which this great...
It's just what happens when you just have cocaine and self-help podcast, I guess.
Culture is being steered towards. Not community and congregation, subsidiarity and individual authority. No.
Subsidiarity?
No, but some kind of Goliath, some beast slouches from Bethlehem to be born. Some centralized creature that claims that it cares for you so much that it wants to protect your health, cares for you so...
So it's all weaving back to vaccines are bad, guys. Come on.
So much it wants you locked in your home. Cares for you so much it wants you injected with medications that haven't endured proper...
This is what this all comes back to. You know what I mean? This all comes back to that being the greatest injustice in the world. I don't know where you all are from, but there was basically never a period in America where we really had some like crazy lockdown and we were stuck in our homes. Like, it just wasn't. It was weird. It was intense, but it wasn't that, you know? Not that that even matters here, but like that is the greatest injustice because, again, if you read the Bible, the stuff that pissed Jesus off seemed to be not taking care of the poor, the orphan, the widow, you know, to not take care of the oppressed. I don't know if like vaccines are what really would have set him off. Now, of course, Jesus did not know what vaccines were. So we could have been very against them.
Maybe paywalling the patents and making them inaccessible to the poor would have pissed him off. And
yeah. I think Jesus wouldn't like the idea that, you know, that money changers in the temple were profiting off the health of others. I don't think he would dig that too much, you know, to be so bold as to say that. But yeah, I just, and it just seems so disappointing that's what it boils down to. You know, it boils down to freedom to not take vaccines and freedom for people that want to do terrorism and child pornography on the internet. Like that's the aim of all this. And we have to utilize a medieval version of like the sovereignty of God and a sort of almost Schmittian political theology to make that happen. I don't know.
Or ethical temptation. Cares for you so much that it wants your children to eat addictive and addicting foods. Cares for you so much it sees you as little more than larvae on a conveyor belt, leading you to a life of sickness and deception, surrounded by a 360 sphere of illusion, augured by those great investors in media. You'll note that George Soros just bought 300 radio stations. You'll know that Bill Gates invested.
I'm just going to say it again. The thing I'm most surprised by here, and maybe this is because I'm naive and haven't really kept up with brand, like anti-Semitic dog whistles galore. Not good, guys. Not good.
$3 million in media donations in the last few years. Centralized control. We would never accept it if they came out face first and said it to us. We would oppose them then. So instead they tell us that they care. Instead they tell us that they love us. Instead they tell.
Has Bill Gates ever told you he loved you, Henry? Have you ever woken up in bed and rolled over?
Not recently. I used to get phone calls every day, but the signal stopped coming.
Yeah, Midtown Funk. I think if only he was talking about the sphere. Let's see. Yeah, so Chris Maverick says, again, per my comments a couple minutes ago, and sorry for this now, and these people think Jesus was heavy into laissez-faire capitalism. Yeah, I mean, and again, like it's the amount of grafting you have to do to make the overall message of at least the New Testament work with free market capitalism is just nuts. Like the level of work, it doesn't make sense. And that's why anytime, like, I'll say this, if you read a theologian that has a more egalitarian, vaguely socialist view on economics and society, if you read them write about how the Bible matches up with a vaguely like socialist ethic, it doesn't feel like a stretch. It's just like, it seems easy. It's like, oh yeah, that just makes sense. Read one of these like weird American theologians that wants to argue that the New Testament is aligned with free market capitalism. You just see them jumping through hoops, you know? It's like Occam's razor here, guys. Yeah, Mark Nugent. No one can serve. Mark said the thing, but Matthew in the Bible said it. No one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. I'm gonna say it. I think we've had a more theologically engaged discussion with more reference to the actual tradition than either of these gentlemen have thus far.
Tell us that they're trying to protect the vulnerable. But today we must say to the state, to the globalist bureaucratic state, get your help off of us.
Get your help off of us.
I gotta say, he's a hard man to top. I think what I'll attempt to do is to weave together one of the themes that I developed earlier today, and that's the theme of self-sacrifice. One of the things we talked about was the notion that the antithesis of the power that the radical utopians insist lies at the basis of all human relationships is something like voluntary self-sacrifice. Now, in the fundamental traditions that guide our culture, we're enjoined to, what would you say, to place ourselves at the service of the divine logos, right? That's a classical Western conceptualization.
The Western thing too. I'm not going to like be dramatic and say that the reliance on Western is as dog whistly as like globalist elites and Soros, but this notion. I mean, I do think there's maybe this is slightly extreme, but maybe like a tacit Islamophobia attached to the constant privileging of the West, maybe.
Derived from both Greece and Jerusalem. And to put yourself at the service of the divine logos is to allow your speech and your actions to be guided not by your own narrow and hedonistic, immature self-will, but by the aim of the...
Like the way that, Peterson is, like, I feel like he's like just going to start rapping the hardest verse ever. Like that, look at that look, like his eyes like that. He's just like ready to just spit.
Of your soul towards the highest possible good. That's expressed.
But again, if they were literally saying, the highest possible good is to create a community of justice and service where we sacrifice ourselves for the sake of others, in which love, compassion, and forgiveness are at the heart of what we're doing. So we want to use all of our collective strategy to create a world like that, a world where the least of these is privileged, a world where we stop caring so much about celebrities and millionaires, and we care about widows and orphans and the poor. And just like Jesus did, we care about sex workers and people in communities that we're not a part of, and give them their humanity and figure out how to bring them into something. And like it says in the book of Acts, live together to share when we need to. If they were saying that is the end game of all this, cool. Again, the end game of all this is that they want to get a billionaire real estate atheist elected to the presidency. That's the end game of this. So it's just so silly. It's just silly, But again, just a diverse and hyped up crowd looking like they're having the time of their fucking lives.
That's expressed in the true speech that puts a solid foundation under your feet and the feet of those around you, and by the calling and conscience that leads you forward into the proper future. We all have that at hand, and that's part of the reason why we're described in the most profound stories that we have as carrying the image of God, the Creator who...
Everything all right? The video just paused.
One second. Sorry. Got a weird text message, but don't worry, everything's fine.
Things that are good into being. That's what we have in front of us as a consequence of our fealty to the truth. And the sacrificial element of that is that if you abide by the dictates of the truth that's attempting to reveal itself within you, that you will be called to sacrifice everything within you that is unworthy as you make your way upward towards what? Towards the ineffable, insofar as you're capable of managing that.
Is he crying now?
Right? And insofar as you do that and take that responsibility onto yourself, there's nothing left for the globalist utopian tyrants to offer you, because you've done it for yourselves.
Globalist. Hospital COVID protocols kill. Sorry, just looking at the signs that people are holding up. Did anyone really get what he was saying there?
I kind of got lost once he started talking about Brand being a hard man to top. Kind of ran with the chat on that.
Yeah.
What is that? Refuse remdesivir, and what was the other one?
I guess there were like some medications or something like that. I guess I think it's the stuff they give you when you like have COVID.
No wonder you were fired from that Canadian university. You're a troublemaker. You're a rabble-rouser. That's very beautiful, Jordan. It's lovely to watch you go into those states. I was thinking, oh no, if Jordan Peterson takes it to crying Jordan Peterson, that's the special move. I've got no answer for that. If he starts crying, oh man, that's it, I'm out. I can't top that. But the truth is that once again we are here in collaboration and alliance as unlikely partners, but partners nevertheless. partners come here to communicate a mutual message. And I think that what you said then is most significant. That I suppose I am an apostate. I formerly belonged to the culture of Hollywood. I've been in their movies, and I remember I would sometimes.
We barely remember, because I'm in a movie in like 20
For a
years.
hat, I'd usually play a rock star. You remember it. And I've experienced at depth and at length the treasures of.
Oh, 1 second. Fools, false prophets. Remember as a child when Saint apologized to you when he was able for church. Yeah, again, like I think our friend Jack, who I think Jack's like a Catholic, or at least has sort of made references to that respect before. Yeah, I just think again, like I think if you're actually like a super Christian person, you would not take this wouldn't take this super seriously. Oh, Penny is trying to scrounge 40 to buy Matt Christman's book to help him pay medical bills. That would be a cool thing to do. Maybe find someone else to split it with you or something like that. And then, I don't know, maybe that works.
Of the culture offered hedonism, excitement, pleasure, distraction. And like any addict, and I know there'll be people out there that suffer from and are in recovery from addiction, and those of you that are will know that recovery is only possible when you accept a spiritual solution, when you become willing to interrogate and examine what you have become and what you've become attached to. And it seems to me that it's not an accident that our culture is predicated upon consuming, upon selfishness, upon distraction, upon mundanity and banality for the individual. A total lack of privacy for the individual, but maximum privacy for the state.
Like, again, I think Brand does a better job than Peterson at least trying to, and this is bracketing all the weird vaccine stuff, talking about, because it is true, like there is a banality to our culture. There is a, emptiness to modern media. There is a, sense in which there's a small group of individuals that somehow have more control than we do. But it all just boils down to like the functioning of capitalism in the media and the way in which keeping us distracted and glued to content makes us better consumers. And the reason there's some small people, a small group of people with more power is because they like own these media companies and stuff like that. I don't know. I just think like to an extent, there's elements of a diagnosis of a kind of like cultural malaise. But I think I guess what's the word I'm looking for? The solution they're offering and like the reasoning behind it is pretty wild.
State. For transparency from individuals, but no transparency from the state. Accountability, lawfare, justice, media, the institutions of your country, all turned against the individual, all utilized for absolute control. Of course, this kind of control would never be accepted if it were visible. It's only through constant escalating crisis, through the elevation of fear and the stimulation of desire. Like rats in laboratories, are stimulated into distraction and compliance. When I watched the Democratic Party National Convention, I enjoyed how well it was crafted and staged, and I reflected on the days when I would host things for MTV like the VMAs. For indeed it is the spectacle of politics. Because where there are no principles or values to undergird them, all that's left is a pantheon of stars and new argots of empty language. TV shows where celebrities are paraded before you to willingly endorse ideas and policies and wars and food and power that they'll never eat or suffer as a consequence of. It won't be. I think we generally know it's not their children that die beneath the flags. It's not their children that will be eating that kind of food. And when people talk about populism like it's a negative thing, like it's an ugly thing, when you hear language like basket of deplorables, when you hear dismissiveness and derisory tones around beautiful American people, and if you're a foreigner like me, a visitor like me, and you find yourself in Cheesecake Factory in some mall in Sarasota.
Shouts to Sarasota.
Are these the people that they hate so deeply? These kind and friendly, warm and charming individuals that don't seem
like, who is the they?
To care a great deal about race, that don't seem to me to care about the private sexual behavior of other.
What are you? Okay, I'll say this. To act as if a majority, or at least a significant part of, I wouldn't even say significant, a vocal part of conservatives in America don't care about race and don't care about sexual orientation and gender just seems true. It seems untrue. Like why? Like we I don't know. You know what I'm saying, Henry? Sorry, I'm struggling to articulate why that sounds so ridiculous to me, or why that feels so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the projection of like the colorblindness or the general like if it wasn't a focus, it wouldn't be a talking point hammered so constantly, or even like within the context of any internet comment section, comes up as like, why are we bringing politics into this?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think we're almost to the prayer, I bet.
Consenting adults that want to worship God, raise their family, connect to nature, and experience love, but from every single angle in the name of protection are being prevented from experiencing what ought to be sacred above all else to Americans, and I say that in the shadow of this mighty pyramid phallus object, is the right to proudly be who you are.
Again, which group of and I'm making, to be fair, guys, I'm making some assumptions off the people who seem to be in the crowd, but where are white middle class American Christians not able to be who they are? There's this sort of fantasy of oppression, which again, if you were just an alien and you wanted to have the easiest life in America and you had to pick an identity type or an avatar, you're probably not going to pick to be a person of color in a major city. You're probably not going to pick to be a trans person. You probably want to pick to be a woman in many cases. You're going to be I want to be a white Christian-y guy. They seem to have the easiest go at it. So this sort of this in a way, it's almost like they're appropriating the political language of oppression used by people who have actually experienced it to justify a sort of weird political theology that prioritizes their identity type or something. It's just so weird to me.
To love one another as he has loved us.
So maybe I'll close with this. It's said that by their fruits you will know them. So we could assess that notion momentarily, riffing off what Russell just laid out. So I've spent a substantial amount of time thinking about how you...
It's so ironic for them to bring up. So for you guys who don't know this, in the Bible, it's and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, by the fruits you will know them is this idea that actions speak louder than words, right? If someone is imbued with the spirit of forgiveness and love and justice, you know it not because they say that, because they do stuff. And again, I just don't see these people doing stuff publicly. I think the same for a lot of the right-wingy grifters who, I don't see them doing anything other than making content and selling books and shit.
You can separate the wheat chaff and identify the true leaders who are at your service and not manipulating you. And I would say this: if you're being terrified into compliance, you're being manipulated by tyrants. Tyrants use fear. They use fear. And they use force. And what you want instead from your leaders is an invitational welcome, right? And that's why this today is a celebration. We're happy you're here. We're hoping for your help because your help is necessary. This isn't about formulating a vision for you. It's about inviting you to bear the responsibility for your life. That's precisely the attitude that's made this country great. And so you listen carefully to those who address you and see if they're inviting you to a banquet that you love to attend, or if they're terrifying you into fear of the future and using force and compulsion to regulate your obedience. And I would say, unless you want to be slave-like sheep who have no proper destiny to play, then find the divine invitation and forgo the terror and force.
So they're worried about the terror and force of, and again, I'm only using the examples that they have given us. If there's something I missed, let us know. Their examples of terror and force are some lockdowns during COVID, vaccines, and to be clear, in the United States of America in the year 2024, you don't have to get a COVID vaccine. You don't have to get a flu vaccine. And there was never really And I could kind of see both sides here, because like there was a point where to do certain stuff, private businesses decided that you did have to have one. But like, sorry, one second, got distracted. ADHD brain. But yeah, so that's like one of the ideas of oppression and force. The other one that Jordan Peterson gave was that Canadian bill that we looked at a second ago that punishes people that talk about terrorism and child pornography online. That's control. That's tyranny or whatever. But they're at a rally arguing that the person who will give us freedom is Trump, someone whose like policies, or at least what we think they're going to be, towards women's bodies are pretty restrictive, towards the bodies of people that weren't born in this country are pretty restrictive, as we saw his first time around, towards the bodies and lives of Muslim people, pretty restrictive and violent. So it just all seems kind of BS. One second. Let's close this in prayer.
Ladies and gentlemen, I happily concede this unofficial debate rap battle to the great Jordan Peterson. Now, I know you've got some fantastic speakers coming up. I can see Jimmy Dore down there. I've had a magnificent conversation with Jimmy.
Wow.
And above all else, when I speak to Jimmy Dore, he impresses upon me the necessity for unity, the necessity to remain vigilant, the opportunity to find alliance between one another, to focus on the issues: health, ending war, free speech, not personalities. And if I have your permission, I would like to end in a short prayer on this holy and auspicious day.
Let's go.
Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus Christ, I call upon your name on...
They're all bowing. The cowboy took his hats off. The others didn't. And I will say, guys, like, please bow your head wherever you're at for this. Show some
occasion. Respect. May it augment an era of peace. May we reach out our hands in friendship, in particular to those that we might imagine we would oppose. May these institutions that were once regarded sacred, so sacred, in fact, that any incursion upon them, as on January 6th, was regarded as a kind of heresy. May the values that warrant these buildings, these institutions, that flag, this nation, being regarded as one nation under God, return to the forefront. May I pray, Lord Jesus Christ, in your holy name, that all Americans of all cultures and colours and persuasions come together in your name. I ask, Heavenly Father, for a new era of peace, that Satan be cast out in your name in all his forms, but in particular in the bizarre, Kafkaesque, Huxley-esque, late Orwellian form of totalitarianism, bureaucracy in the name of care. Lord, I ask for true republicanism and true democracy, that every individual may feel their freedom to open-heartedly engage in discourse and conversation with one another in good faith, and enter the deception, the lies, and the censorship and the control. Respect the honour of the individual, the sovereignty of the individual, that we are all fallen individuals, and that we may serve in your name on the day of the feast of St. Michael. I ask, Lord, that your holy light shine on America and across the world for new voluntary unity, not imposed top-down unity, Lord. Lord,
I kind of hope Jesus is real, so he's hearing all this.
Ask that we be brought together in these principles under your name. I pray for America, and if I have your permission,
I hope that Jesus likes America, especially.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Just do the version that you know. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
I can't.
Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
This is too much for me.
Give us
this
day
is too much
our
for
daily
me.
Bread.
This is officially too much for me.
Our trespasses,
too much.
As we forgive
too
those
much.
who trespass against us.
Too much.
And lead us not into temptation.
Oh my God.
But deliver us from evil.
Oh my God.
For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Go to church.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so we watched that whole thing. I didn't think we were going to watch the whole thing. We watched the whole thing, guys. What did we learn? We learned that certain people, in this case Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand, are seemingly using a weird reading of vaguely medieval Christianity to justify a sort of fetishization of a type of absolute libertine freedom for certain people, probably at the expense of others, that they believe this sort of medieval theological principle is necessary for ethics and politics, because without the sovereign God, we cannot be ethical. They also were espousing various conspiracy theories, some bordering on anti-Semitic, some that were anti-Semitic, about the secret cabal that controls society. There's some weird, slightly anti-scientific fears built in there as well. And all of the end goal of that, the only things we know they were aiming at were they want Trump to be president. They don't think you should have to take vaccines. And they think you should be able to do like some terrorism and child pornography online. I'm not trying to be silly. I'm not trying to be silly when I say any of that. That is what I heard in the thing. Henry, what are your takeaways?
My brain's kind of been destroyed by this. I don't know. I couldn't track it. I'm head empty right now. We got to rescue the Republic.
Wow. So Henry is brand filled.
I heard Kafkaesque, and I was just like, he's right. He knows exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think so. Jarek left this comment. They're conflating being resented with being oppressed. Yeah, I really think that's a really good way to put it, Jarek.
Yeah, great phrasing.
Sort of, the mixture of resentment for oppression. Yeah, they resent that they're not in charge. They resent that they're not the most powerful. And to be clear, like in all of this, criticizing these folks are in no way, we're not trying to say that like the other side of the American, two-sided political spectrum is great, good, perfect, whatever. We're just talking about these guys on their own terms. But I would say if you're someone that happens to have watched this stream and you're someone who likes, Jordan, white anxiety, another great diagnosis there. If you're someone who digs Peterson and Brand, you think this is an interesting message, I would just try to read some of the Bible or some political theology or something, because a lot of this is it's just silly. Now, before we go, I'm going to just do an aggressive hard pivot. Again, we have a giveaway contest. Our giveaway contest is for a bag of Yes Please coffee, some of the best coffee that exists in America. It's a coffee without tyranny. There's no vaccinations in here. It's not from a PD party or anything like that. It's just good coffee. And if you want it, we have a contest. All you got to do is tell us how you like your coffee. You can do it. Again, just be creative. The examples I'll give you could write a short poem, a little essay. You could make a meme, draw a picture, make a collage, put a song together. I think memes would be funny. You could do anything that's kind of short and easily communicable to tell us how you like your coffee.
And should they just send that to the email?
Yes, and you will send that to wisecracklive666@gmail.com. If you can remember, put coffee contest in the subject line. Again, put coffee contest in the subject line. And of course, in the meantime, if you're too lazy to make stuff, you can always get some Yes Please coffee for 20% off. You can use our link down below. And this is only until we can get sponsors like Russel Brand, where we're like, we have this vitamin for you. It's so amazing. Use code BRAND and you can put poison in your body, but it's organic. It's just coffee. That's all we got for you. Guys, we'll be back. Something I forgot to announce. Next episode, guys. Also, someone that miscellaneous says microdose shrooms and go to church. Guys, do that and let us know how it goes at Wisecrack Live. And again, for the giveaway, I'll say it one more time. Let us know how you like your coffee. Be creative with it. Wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Okay. Guys, next week, CJ the X is joining us. Some of you might know who CJ is. Some of you might not. CJ the X is one of the coolest, most interesting, smart, weird creators on the internet. If you don't know who CJ is, go watch some of their YouTube videos. Before then, they also make very cool stuff on their Patreon and other places. But truly one of the most exciting and interesting creators of, intellectual and artistic content on this platform. So please come back next Wednesday, October 9th. Wednesday, October 9th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. CJ the X is going to be with us. I think CJ is going to hang for what I asked him to do was hang for just the whole stream, and we could just cook. So if you ever wanted to see, me and CJ the X in the kitchen, just cooking.
Are we still doing a Monday show?
Oh yeah, we're doing a Monday show as well. Sorry to just skip over that one. But before then, Monday, 10 a.m. Nice little show there. I will say, if you do have questions or things you think would be fun for CJ and I to talk about, hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Monday we'll have a big show. I can't tell you what the topic is because I don't know what it is, but I bet it's going to be a good one. Monday at 10 a.m. Yeah, let me give you a link before we go to CJ's channel. I think that's a very fair thing of you to ask. I think sometimes you all ask for too much, and I think this is an instance where I don't think you're asking for too much. I highly recommend starting with their video Folgers Coffee Christmas Incest Commercial 2009. So go get yourself familiar with CJ's work because they rip. And if you are a CJX fan or you're on their Patreon, we did a video together earlier this year or last year. I kind of forget. I forget a lot of stuff. But again, thanks for me. Remember, you can always watch the show after the fact. We put this up here. You can check us out on Spotify as well. So if you don't follow Wisecrack on Spotify, if you're a Spotify user, do me a favor, pull out your phone, go to Spotify and subscribe over there. Would really appreciate that. And as always, leave comments. If you're watching this after the fact, we read those and we talk about them on the show. Friends, this has been fun. We love you. May God be with you, and we'll see you Monday at 10 a.m.
See you next week, y'all.